It is the 22nd of May, 1944, in a cluster of low buildings hidden among pine forest at Zossen, 20 miles south of Berlin. Inside, Colonel Alexis von Roenne studies a report that has just reached his desk. It describes an entire American army group, more than 1 million men, massed in the fields and ports of Kent, poised to strike across the narrowest stretch of the English Channel towards Pas-de-Calais. Von Roenne is not a foot soldier. He is the head of Fremde Heere West, the branch of German military intelligence responsible for one task above all others: telling Adolf Hitler where the invasion of France will actually land. Everything the Wehrmacht will do in the coming weeks depends on the accuracy of what he writes next. And yet the army group in that report does not exist. It never has. What von Roenne holds in his hands, and what he is about to endorse to his Führer, is a phantom, one of the most elaborate lies ever committed to paper, and the choice he makes about it may say more about his own conscience than about the war he is meant to be winning. By the spring of 1944, German commanders in the West faced an impossible arithmetic problem. Allied planners had spent 2 years building the men, ships, and aircraft for an invasion of occupied France, but the coastline they might choose stretched for hundreds of kilometers, from Brittany to the Netherlands. Germany could not defend all of it with equal strength. 60-odd divisions, many depleted after years of fighting on the Eastern Front, had to be spread thinly enough to cover every plausible landing site, yet concentrated enough to crush an invasion within days before it could establish a foothold. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt and his subordinates needed one thing above all: reliable intelligence on where the blow would fall and how large it would be. Without it, Germany risked either scattering its reserves uselessly along empty beaches or gathering them in the wrong place while the real invasion swept ashore unopposed. The stakes could not have been higher, and the burden of answering that question rested almost entirely on Fremde Heere West and on von Roenne personally. The Allied answer to this problem was not built in a shipyard, but in the offices of the London Controlling Section, a small secretive planning staff working under Colonel John Bevan. Their creation, codenamed Operation Fortitude South, was a complete fictional invasion force, the first United States Army group, supposedly commanded by General George Patton, the Allied general the Germans feared most. FUSAG existed almost entirely on paper and in the air. Engineers built dummy landing craft from canvas and scaffolding, light enough to bob convincingly on the tide, yet weighing barely 1/10 of the real thing. Sound recordings of construction work and marching boots played across empty camps. Double agents, chiefly the Spanish businessman codenamed Garbo, fed Berlin a steady stream of invented order of battle reports, complete with unit numbers, commanders, and locations, describing divisions that were nothing more than names on a distribution list. Radio operators broadcast the routine, repetitive chatter of a real headquarters, discussing supply shortages and training schedules for formations that had never been raised. Taken together, it produced something close to a fully rendered map of an army that was, quite literally, empty ground. Von Roenne's endorsement of this material was not a single dramatic scene but a pattern repeated over months. Historians examining his surviving reports have noted that he accepted almost every piece of fabricated intelligence placed in front of him, inflating what were probably around 45 genuine Allied divisions in Britain into an estimate of nearly 90. He identified specific corps in locations they never occupied and vouched for documents that more skeptical analysts might have questioned. He had also endorsed Operation Mincemeat, the earlier British deception involving a corpse and false papers used to disguise the target of the Sicily landings. What makes von Roenne's case remarkable is that he was, by most accounts, secretly opposed to Hitler's regime, connected to the resistant circle later implicated in the July plot against the Führer's life. Whether he was simply an intelligence officer whose own system had trapped him inside its logic, or a man who recognized the deception and chose to let it stand, remains genuinely disputed among historians, and no surviving document proves either version with certainty. If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. The consequence of von Roenne's reports was concrete and measurable. On the 6th of June, when the real invasion landed at Normandy, German High Command hesitated for weeks before releasing the powerful 15th Army, 19 divisions strong. The consequence of von Roenne's reports was concrete and measurable. On the 6th of June, when the real invasion landed at Normandy, German High Command hesitated for weeks before releasing the powerful 15th Army, 19 divisions strong, still waiting at Pas-de-Calais for an assault that would never come. Hitler personally ordered those forces to remain on alert as late as early July, a full month after D-Day, convinced by the continuing flow of FUSAG intelligence that Normandy was merely a diversion. Compare this with German counter-deception efforts of the period, which by 1944 had been badly weakened by the arrest or turning of nearly every German agent operating in Britain, leaving Fremde Heere West almost entirely reliant on compromised sources. American planners on the other side of fortitude, chiefly Bevan's team working with Schaeff, had achieved something no Axis intelligence service ever matched in reverse, convincing an enemy government to hold back its own strategic reserve, based on an army built from little more than canvas, radio scripts, and a colonel's willingness to believe. The material legacy of the deception is thin, because deception, by its nature, leaves few physical traces. A handful of dummy landing craft frames survive in British museum collections, alongside the wireless logs and double-cross case files now held at the National Archives at Kew. Von Roenne himself did not survive to see the war's end or offer any explanation. He was executed on the 12th of October 1944, swept up in the reprisals following the July plot, officially for failing to report what he knew of the conspiracy. What he left behind was a paper trail historians still argue over and a case study taught at intelligence academies as one of the finest examples of strategic deception ever executed, precisely because its success depended not on machinery, but on persuading one trusted, frightened, conflicted man to sign his name beneath a lie. Return for a moment to that room at Zossen in May 1944. A map lies on the desk, describing 1 million soldiers who will never cross the Channel, commanded by a general who has nothing to command. Colonel von Roenne reads it, weighs it, and passes it upward as fact. 19 German divisions will spend the summer of 1944 guarding an empty coastline because of a document built from scaffolding and static. A war that Germany was already struggling to win was made, by that single act of endorsement, measurably harder to survive. Whether von Roenne believed every word of what he signed, or understood precisely what he was doing and chose to do it anyway, the map itself did not care. It simply worked. Paper, without a single soldier behind it, held down an army that Germany could not afford to lose, at the exact moment it needed those men the most. That is the strange, quiet power of the American map that never existed, and the German officer who decided, for reasons he took to his grave, to make it real.